Welcome to the Power Tribe Network.
Just Keep Living to me now means I get it. And one of the things about Just Keep Living is that I wanted to have a place where people would feel safe. It really isn't enough to be right. You have to be effective. And you'll learn that the more breaths that you take, the more grace that you're given, the more opportunities that you have to just keep living. Just Keep Living with Marva Hanks. This is Marva with Just Keep Living. On this episode, I have a friend from back in the 90s, Kirk Smith.
Yeah, that's true.
And Kirk used to play basketball with my brothers in California. You guys played in college.
That was the highlight of my life, not just your brothers. Basketball, that was my number one love. I honestly was so, I didn't have any other real dreams or ambitions or like, I know that sounds so stupid, but I was like, I loved it since I was I don't know, I just loved it. And your brothers could play.
Yeah.
Your brothers could really play. It was like, and you meet the one, you're like, oh, it's a big man. And you meet the other one, that's even a bigger man.
Right.
Two very big men.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Tall Tribe. We've had an episode on that, on the Tall Tribe series, but my podcast is called Just Keep Living. I was telling you that while we were warming up. And it's because my dad would always try to answer questions that I had limitless questions always for him. And so for this brown-eyed girl, the answer of Just Keep Living was his answer to me. So the older I have gotten, the more that I know to just trust God, trust the process, and just keep living, keep breathing, and the answers will come. So we met in California. I could not have imagined that we would meet here, that I would be living in Dallas. So there's a lot that has gone on in our journey. After you played basketball, you married your college sweetheart. You guys went to Romania.
Yeah, we were like deeply in love. And when basketball did not pan out, not that I'm still bitter about it, we decided to, now I played 4 years, it was great. And then we decided to, this lady came and spoke at our school and was like, oh, this is the 90s. And there's like, oh, there's a big problem with orphanages in Romania. There's not enough orphanages. Kids are living in the sewers. This would have been 95, 96. And so then we're like, it seems like a good idea. We're just like young kids, like early 20s, just so bright-eyed and like, what could possibly go wrong? And so we're like, sure. And honestly, it was a really great experience. We'd both grown up overseas, so it wasn't that much of a, it was a third world country at the time. It was hard to get milk and meat, but it was a really cool experience. And so we went over to Romania. We were there a year. We got pregnant, and it took us a while to figure out how that happened, but we figured it out. Somebody sent us some drawings. Were all the drawings sad? I'm joking. But it was good. It was like just a very, we went over there like it wasn't like a real job. We went over there like as volunteers. So when we came back, it was like, okay, we need insurance because we don't have health insurance. And so then I got a job in Silicon Valley. This would have been 97, I want to say.
Right, because I got the letter from Lorena saying that she didn't want to have the baby over in Romania.
Because we went to the hospital one time and there was like some of the bed sheets that had blood on them. Like not a lot, but enough to be like, this isn't clean.
Right.
Like, well, yeah, but it's not that much. And you're like, okay, well.
Right.
We wanted to have birth on clean sheets. We're crazy Americans. Yeah. So, she's not American. But so that was, You guys kept in touch, right? Because you met at a party.
This is before cell phones. This is before, so it was letter writing. So she had She had babysat for us while we lived.
Yes, that's right.
While you guys were in college. So she babysat Maya and Milan and some other kids.
Silver Creek or something.
Yeah, we lived in Silver Creek Valley Country Club.
That's right.
San Jose. Then by the time she caught up with me, we were living in Black Hawk, California.
That's right.
That's where you guys lived with us for a little while before you started
like 6
working.
months maybe?
It was a while. We haven't done over and over and over before. We do that. We keep a room open for the wayward. But it wasn't too out of the norm for you guys because Lorena had grown up in an orphanage, not that she was orphaned. And then your experience too in South America, were you guys working with orphans then?
Mom,
tell me the commonalities of you two, your story.
Well, her parents ran an orphanage. So she grew up with, she calls them brothers and sisters, like a couple hundred, but it's not biological. Just like they were in an orphanage. So it was like everybody was kind of communal. And like it was literally in the jungle of Sri Lanka. It was, I've been a bunch of times. It's the most surreal It's like India light, and it's very surreal. And I grew up in the third world, so it's not like I'm not that sheltered.
Right.
But even for me, it was like, wow. It's like just there was nothing out there. People, a lot of barefoot people. Everybody's like communal. It's a lot of rice and lentils, and then I grew up a missionary kid. So, but Ecuador at the time, there's like third world, and then there's like parts of India and Sri Lanka and places like that are like, it's another level of like just poverty and desperation.
One of my favorite memories to snap me back into reality that we just like life is just not that serious here in these United States was you guys were living with us at the time. Maya Milan was going through getting her diagnosis of autism. We'll talk about that a little later. Yeah. But I remember distinctly driving back on this road, and we were being sued by one of our agents at the time. Merton was still playing with the 49ers. The girls are in the back seat. He's being sued by his attorney. And I'm feeling just driving the Range Rover, leaving the country club, thinking, this is the worst feeling I have ever been through in my life. And and I say to Lorena, what's the worst thing you've ever gone through in your life? And she's like, well, the rebels came and they kidnapped two of our kids. They kidnapped two of our family members and took the van and all. And I'm like, what?
Her stories were the worst. Like, it's impossible to complain about anything.
It was very, very sobering to me. It was a good cold water splash on the face. So like, girl, get your act together. You're not going through anything.
She was anything. Okay, so we had two little kids. After that, we had a couple of kids. I remember she wanted to do one of them in cloth diapers because we were like flat broke. Like, she wasn't working. One of our kids was disabled. Tip my hand a little bit. That happened later, but. I'm like, isn't this the worst? Like washing out diapers in the toilet.
Right.
And then she's like, well, my mom used to have this big pot and it would put all the diapers in and stir it because you have to boil it for the bugs. Like, okay, well, that's worse. A big steaming soup of baby poop. Right. Disgusting. Right. So yeah, she
always had a story that could one up yours and just bring you back.
But when I went there, it was like, it was true.
Yeah. I wasn't saying story as in make believe fairy tale. No, I know,
like edge of the jungle.
Yes.
It was crazy. And then they would like show up. I remember one time we were there and they'd show up, the authorities would show up with a kid. This is a kid. We don't know his names. We're going to call him Sanjit, but they didn't like know his real, like when he was born, we think he might be 6, he might be 8. We made a mistake and put him in prison for a week and a half. So he's upset. Well, like stuff like that. Like, okay, well, that's not a good idea.
No. But I love those stories and I loved how our life kind of intersected. Then I have great pictures of you guys of parties and stuff that we had at the house.
Beard. It was the worst. I don't know what I was doing. It was like this okey doke meets
You were that Santa Cruz dude. You were the surfer dude that mixed with Berkeley dude.
Bad, like Owen Wilson, but without the talent hair. Bad. Yeah, man.
Right.
Yeah, those are some
good memories.
Good memories. It was like that was a fun school. It's like a little school. You get up, you go surf, you go to class. You go play some basketball and you eat, you go play some more basketball. It's like, what could possibly go wrong? Well, everything.
Yeah. Well, we talked about what could go wrong. Just walk into the studio, right? Our experiences with our coaches. My coach still coaches today. I've talked about Vivian Stringer and I marvel that she still has this longevity, this long of a career. She's a Hall of Fame coach. But the things that we would have to experience that are not allowed in NCAA now.
We went to a Christian school and he used to curse us out. He'd grab him by the jersey. He outweighed about 60, 70 pounds and literally bump me into other people. What's wrong with you? Get my daughter out here, you little... I won't say what he said. Anyway, but that stuff wouldn't fly. And he had played in the NBA. John Block, he had a great career and was a couple-time All-Star. His fingers, like a lot of athletes, didn't work. And so I remember one time he called timeout and he's like, run this. And it's a podcast, so you can't see, but I'm holding up my scrunched fingers and it looks like they're all erect. I don't know what he's calling. And then we're just looking at each other. And finally one of us, I had to be like, what is that? That's a 53. This finger doesn't work and this one doesn't work. It's like, he was a handful, that man.
Right.
He was a good man. It's just misguided. Yeah.
Well, that's all they knew. They did the best with what they knew and what was allowed back then. So that motivated him.
He was coached.
There we go.
He was probably coached with somebody had a mallet or something to hit him in the head with.
Well, the thing that I marvel at, and I marvel at with a lot of my teammates, is that my coach never even played the sport. But she's able to be a Hall of Fame coach. And she's launched so many. But she never... I don't think she's had hardship. She has a book too, so we can read about her hardship in her book. But it's my
think that's
podcast.
more common though, because a lot of imagine Michael Jordan giving you coaching advice, like go down the lane and dunk it in his face.
Right.
Like, well, I can't do that.
Right.
What about the rest of us? What do we do?
It takes,
I think the guys who are a little
she's
less
a student
talented
of people,
are better.
for sure. She's a student of people. She's a motivator.
Good at motivating people.
Very good. And the crooked finger. I'm not sure how she got hers. She's got the crooked fingers also. I think that's an athletic thing. That's an athletic thing. So our journey takes us to good times in the 90s. Right?
Yeah, early 90s.
You did pretty
great.
well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, early 90s were great. I didn't have any money, but it was fun. I was in love. Yeah, I had a couple kids, and it was good.
Okay.
It was good. Yeah, I should have put all my money in Apple stock and Amazon, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah, we all could have, would have, should have. We all could have, would have, should have.
Yeah.
True. So the journey for me from California to Michigan and then to New York City, our lives intersect again, because then I saw you stand up.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that was the launch of your time there. It had to be about 15 years ago.
Yeah, I've only been doing stand-up 15 years. Yeah, maybe.
So tell me, what was your interest in that?
Well, Lorena was just a beautiful girl and very smart. She spoke 5 languages and just a loving person, but she suffered from depression a lot. So she'd get in these moods where it would just be rough. And so you're always trying to and I've always been, I don't know if I was always funny, but I've always been fun, where I'm always trying to hey, we can do this and this. So you kind of just lean towards trying to anything. You're trying to make jokes. You're trying to make her laugh. You're trying to make.
And I didn't realize that. So can I tell you, this is all new conversation since the last time
Depression?
you were in town. Well, hers specifically.
Okay.
Because what that looks like on the other side of the experience, I had no idea. So from you guys living with us briefly, I never experienced that from our talks and our interactions about marriage and autism and all of that.
She was young then. So depression usually hits women late 20s. And so when we were there, she was probably, was a little bit older than me. She was probably 23. And so then it wasn't as pronounced. And then as she got older, it just became much more pronounced. And then, I get this question a lot. Do you think my son is, you know this, but your listeners don't know this, but is severely autistic, but also cognitively delayed, we would call, which we used to call retarded when I was a kid. You don't say it anymore, but he's got epilepsy, he's got a bunch of stuff. So that's not the reason she was depressed, but it definitely didn't help.
Right.
It definitely didn't help that you've got that, not cloud, but here's, you can't help but to get in your head where it's this is the rest of your life where you're going to deal, trying to figure out how to provide for this kid and how to, navigate.
Right.
Because it's a very, I love Milan, but my son's way more.
Right. I was thinking that when you said that, I was because when we would meet and talk over lunch, we met in Manhattan several times to just encourage each other. And I did not realize how impacted JJ was from autism. So it's there's a range.
Oh, the spectrum's huge.
Yeah. And so how
Bill Gates is probably on it.
Well,
guys like that, but they're fully functioning.
Right.
And so that's great, but that's not what my son's doing.
Clearly not. Clearly not. Right. Because you guys had moved to one of the boroughs in New York for JJ's schooling.
Yeah, there was a great school. So we were living in Dallas, and we saw on CNN there was a school called PS 176X, which is a public school, all autistic kids, 500 kids. So all the services are there. You don't have to explain. Because that was one of my problems with the school here, was they would call me, every week, and I'm a comedian, so bear with me. Some of these are jokes, but it's true. They call me every week. I'm something's wrong with your son. You think so? We'll give it away. The fact is, wearing Batman pajamas every day. Yeah, they would every week. There's so we're okay, we need something where it's not. He's not the most severe case they've ever seen, and they're just what in the world? So he was still close, but it was okay, we've got a couple kids like this, and so we thought it would give him a chance. And about half the kids in that program come out of it fully independent, whatever, but that means statistically half don't. So my son was on the half that did not. Right. So we tried it. It was great. We did as long as we could, and yeah.
So I didn't realize that the jump was from California to Dallas, then to the Bronx.
More complicated than that. So it's California. We're in school, right? Then we go to college. We go to Romania. Then we come back. We live with you. Then I get a job in Vacaville. You probably remember that. I get a job. I don't know what I want to do. I wanted to play basketball still. Didn't work out. But I'm surprisingly smart for somebody who looks like he doesn't have a GED. And so I was doing the QuickBooks for the orphanage. I set them all up on QuickBooks. I did all this accounting stuff. So then when I came back, it's like, oh, you can do accounting. So like when I lived with you, I got an accounting job. Then I got a job in Vacaville as a cost accountant. But I just, for my personality, it's so debilitatingly boring. It's just the repetition of the spreadsheets. It just was so. Anyway, so then I kind of moved over to more of the salesy side, which was I would much rather hear no or have people insult me or whatever than just sit in front of a spreadsheet all day. It's like torture. Anyway, well, that place closed, and they're like, you can move. We're relocating the whole office to Irvine, Southern Cal, or you can be fired. And I had 2 little kids and one was disabled. So it's like, okay, we'll take that. Then Lorena's mom got cancer really bad. So she goes home from Sri Lanka to Sweden to get, her mom was Sri Lankan. So she's mixed. Yeah, her dad is local and her mom is Swedish. So she goes home to Sweden to get chemo. And then she's like, my mom's going to die. And I feel like I should be there for her to like nurse her. And like, so what am I going to say? I'm like, okay. I mean, what do you say to that? Like, no, let her die. So I was like, okay. So then she goes to Sweden. So then I transferred, same company, to the UK. And then I would go home on the weekends to Sweden. And we did that for a year. Then her mom was sick for like a year. Then she recovered. And then she died a year later in a botched gallbladder surgery. That's a different discussion that would drive Lorena crazy. She would just...
And JJ's support at that time. What kind of education is he getting? I know Alex, we skipped over the brightest, the shining star of Alex. So she's going to manage.
She's like 3 at the time. They're 2 and 3, 15 months apart. Irish twins. So like those little kids, so the schooling's not really a big thing yet. We know something's, different. Like he would run away. He didn't talk. And so like at the time when we were in Vacaville, Lorena was kind of light skinned, but not white. And she had like braids. And so one time my son ran away and he was the fair one. So the cops pick him up and then the cops didn't believe she was the mom because he doesn't talk. It's like, is this your mom? And then he's just staring at her. And so then she has to like bring him home and show pictures and then like stuff like that. So it was like, it's complicated because he would run away and he doesn't talk.
Right.
But not in school. So then we're in the UK. Okay, so then her mom recovers, and they tell me that job in Irvine's gone, but you can live in Connecticut or you're fired. So then I was like, okay. So then we took a job in Connecticut. She really did not like Connecticut. It was just very cold and also not in New York. It's not like you're not in a big city.
It's a different world.
Yeah, and it's a little... I hesitate to use the word racist, but it's very complicated where it's like, I don't know what to call it. It's like... People are just
use your words, Kirk. You're a writer. Come on, you got the vocabulary.
I think there's like
you just had a Karen experience that I do want to get into later.
That's Well, there's like overt racism where it's like we don't want any of you people around, kind of thing. And then there's the thing where it's just complicated, where people are like they don't know how to interact with you, and they're really rude on accident, and they don't realize how hurtful or rude they're being.
Right.
And if you would say that's really racist, no, I like black people. I love, and they'll name something. Okay, well, that's not what I'm saying.
Right.
Just saying, interact with me nicer, please. Don't say those other things.
Right.
So she did not like it. So then they were like, we can move you to Dallas if you wanted to. I took a job in Dallas, same company still. And so then we were down here 5 years. And then after that was when we
made it back to New York.
On the East Coast. And then by then I'd quit that corporate job. I was there like 8 years. Okay. I did the MBA thing. I did all that. It was okay. It was just, I just don't fit really well in that culture. I don't know.
So you're saying all that to say this is your journey to comedy.
Oh, right. Sorry. So then I got a job as I just talk a lot, in a not-for-profit, raising funds for a school in South America. So we did that for like 6-7 years, raised all the money. And I was doing comedy at night. And then that's after that I transitioned. So that's probably 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm old. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. But the baby face. So our listeners can't see
fat little baby face. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just look like a real life Howdy Doody doll. Just like a ventriloquist. I'm going to get one of those little cases in a second.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That'll work well. Work that into your act. So now the other night I saw you and I took some friends that hadn't seen your act before. But I do want, because it needs to be talked about. It's so relevant to the times that we live in. And it goes to some of your material, because you always say in your act, you say your dream body was to be 6'5", 240, and be black. You're listening to Just Keep Living with Marva Hanks.
Okay, you have to remember at the time in the NBA when we had Larry Bird, who was just retired, who was good. I'm not saying he wasn't good, but that was it. What do you got? John Stockton, also good, but it's like there's no flair, there's no creativity. Like you had Jordan, you had Dominique Wilkins, you had like Charles Barkley, all these guys that are like, so yeah, like you're trying to emulate people's games, and you can't see me, but I'm built like a ventriloquist dummy. But if I had been I could really shoot. So if I had a little more size, because then we went to Germany to visit a friend. You remember Clint? He played with Ross. Yeah. So he was playing professional, and we played in a tournament, and they offered me a Division III thing. And I had 2 little kids, and one's disabled. I'm like, I can't take this. The money's not guaranteed. It's like, so, but if I had a little more size, because I could shoot like 6'5", and I could shoot and a little more, because everybody tried to post me up. I was like, yeah, but that's true. That was still my dream. That was one of my few regrets. So more than Apple.
So, but it could be your dream, and you're imagining your dream body. But I would say every brown person in your dream body has experienced a Karen situation that you experienced the other evening. The entitlement. We
all experience it. You guys just experience it worse.
Yeah.
But we experience it too. It's we're not immune from pain. Like you just get it worse.
Right.
Yeah. No, she was terrible.
Right.
Okay, how clean is this podcast?
You go.
Okay, so sometimes I'll have these young girls who are like pretty. I'm using air quotes. Not like they're ugly. They're pretty girls. But, and I'll tell them like, you're not used to hearing the word no, but I'm not trying to bang you. So I'm going to tell you the truth. Be quiet. And then they keep talking like daddy's talking quiet. Because I'll set it up like that I'm a dad, and I'll be a little bit more crass than that. But it's true. Like they don't used to hear no. They're used to getting their way. The guy she was with that night, so the backstory on this, people, is I had to kick this lady out of a show. The guy she was our first date, still paid for the whole tab. She doesn't suffer any consequences. And she comes up to the show and tries to hit on me. I was like, no, we're not talking. You tried to run the show. Leave. My only regret from that night is I should have started the shame chant, like shame, 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 shame when we were kicking her out. She was the worst.
Yeah, she was.
Sorry, I get so animated. But she tried, you work 15 years of this, you have some skill, and then people just come and try to ruin it.
Right.
And you can ruin anything. I could ruin a Mercedes. I can't build a Mercedes. I can ruin it. Give me a bat. I'll destroy it. It's like, sorry, I get so
I thought you were overly gracious to her that evening, and I was wondering why.
Well, the flip side is a man, I can say he has a small penis. I can say anything. If I make a woman cry, I'm the bad guy somehow. And I've done this before. Okay. Where I'm the best somehow. I'm just trying to have fun. And then they like, oh, she's just trying to have fun. It's my birthday. She'll say something like that. It's like, oh, sure. Like, what does that have to do with it?
But you've experienced the heckling before. So tell me about one of the heckles that you had while you were on your cruise tour.
Okay, wait. I'll tell you the worst heckle I've ever had.
I want to hear it.
Okay, I just moved to New York, right? I'm at this terrible club called the Ha that's gone. It's on Times Square. They do 8 shows a night. Starts at 7. Those shows are fun. Those shows okay. 9 o'clock's great. 10 o'clock's great. They have a 1:30 show. Well, guess who gets barked in on a 1:30 show on a Wednesday? It's like people that are hanging out in Times Square at 1:30. It's like, it's not a good element. And it's like people, so, and I've only been doing comedy like 6 years. So I'm okay. And the guy's like, do 7 minutes. So what you do is you take your best 7 minutes, your best 10, cut it down and just keep it really tight. And you 7 minutes and you cut, so I do 7 minutes. It goes okay. Not great, but not terrible. Look around. There's no host. Okay. So then I can't leave till the host comes back in the room. Then I do 10, 3 more minutes. No host. Then I do 15. Now I'm out. I do 15 minutes. I'm out of material because I only have like 20 and I've already cut it down. I can't be like, remember that joke from 5 minutes ago? Strawberries. I could have said that too.
Right.
Can't do that. So I'm wearing this stupid little jacket. And 20 minutes, 20 minutes. And I work clean mostly. Like for the most part, I still work clean. So it's like clever little stuff. So now I got to go around there. I'm like, what do you do? What are you doing? And this guy's like, I'm waiting for you to take off that jacket and say something funny. Pretty funny. It's pretty damn funny, right? So I go, that's pretty funny. I'm sweating up there. Finally, 25 minutes, the host comes back. And they take me back and I'm like, what happened? You said always 7 minutes. It's like, I was like 7 minutes. Like I taped it. It was 20-something minutes. How'd it go? Terrible. You want to come back tomorrow? Okay, it's fine. That's stand-up comedy. It's just like, I don't know why we do this to ourselves. It's terrible. Anyway, I don't know what was that answer. I don't remember what you even asked.
I wanted one of your cruise ships.
Oh, the cruise ships. Did I tell you this story already?
Our listeners have not heard it.
Oh, right.
And I love it.
I didn't get what you were getting at. This is a better story. Okay, so I'm on a cruise ship. I'm doing out of Miami. It's a 3-day cruise, which costs $120, which is and that's all your meals included, which is the cheapest cruise you're going to get. And sometimes if they're local, they can get it for $85. So you get people that like have nothing else to do. They're spending $80. You're stuck on a boat. You wander into shows. You leave shows. You don't care. There's no bouncer. What are they going to do? Kick you out and like put you in a rowboat? No, they're just keep it down to something. So I'm doing a show. The first show goes, okay, you do 5 shows. By second, third show, I'm out of material that they're going to like, because they don't want to hear like, when people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, they only want to hear certain things from you because people look at me and assume I'm a senator's son or my dad has a boat, which isn't true, but they make assumptions. So I only have a little leeway of what they're going to want to hear from me. So I'm doing some jokes. It's not going great. And this lady in this like purple sweatsuit, like matching sweatsuit, tracksuit, walks right across, almost right in front of the stage and is like making a scene. She could have left the other way, but and so then,
she's making a statement.
Make a statement. And so I'm like, well, you're not staying for the rest of the show? And she's like, nah, you're not funny. So, and I have a real mouth on me. So I was like, oh, well, Barney's spoken. So now everybody's like, oh, now everybody's got their attention. Oh, shit. Oh, everybody's excited, right? So she's about halfway out the door and then she turns around and now everybody's going crazy. Oh, no. And so she starts walking towards the stage. And as she gets closer, I just stick my cheek out and I point at my cheek. And she gets closer and closer to give me a kiss, it gets closer and closer. And when she gets right there, it's like a 60-year-old lady with a wig. She's right there, gets real close. I turn and kiss her right in the mouth. I don't know why I did that. I don't know what came over me. And then the place goes bananas.
They go crazy.
And then she says something like, oh, now we're engaged or something. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. I was praying for that kind of outcome the other night.
I didn't know what to do with Karen. That. I was so patient with her.
When you were extraordinarily patient. I was surprised because that was a good one. Because I've seen you handle it in New York and I've heard you handle it in Miami. And I was like, why is he holding back on this one?
Right in the middle. Mm-hmm. And I honestly thought they were going to kick her out. Because then I asked the manager afterwards, like, well, we'd already paid her bill and we were ready to kick her out. We went for a personal invitation from stage. Kick her out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was a little frustrated with Eric. And then so what I did do is what you can do is I don't like doing this, but you don't pause into your jokes. You just joke. So like I speed up the rhythm so she can't get anything out. Like,
right.
You can't hear her. Mm-hmm. She's trying. Mm-hmm. But I'm just talking.
I saw her from my vantage point. I could see all of the aggravation. Yeah. Which I thought was unfair, but that's the life of a comic. And you still love it. That didn't sway you from stopping, ending?
No.
Okay. Well, you're going back for more.
No, she doesn't get to decide what I do.
There we go.
No, because she wins.
Come on.
No, she doesn't get to decide anything.
Come on, Holy Ghost.
She doesn't get to win.
Okay.
No. My only regret is I should have laid into her when she left. I should have been like, shame from like Game of Thrones or something like that. Be like, go. Because I go, and that's the other thing. I lifted the crowd. I'm like, she's like, you ain't funny. I'm like, you guys enjoying your show? I was like, yeah. Do you think she's being, what did I say? You think she's being dumb or something? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then some Mexican guy in the back's like, you think she's being a bitch? And everybody's like, yeah.
Out. Yeah. You redeemed it. You redeemed it. The last 10 minutes of the show were redeemed once you kicked her out.
But it was like,
and I could tell that your rhythm was just a little bit off.
Well, then I had time.
Yeah. My group around me, they didn't know any different. All your stuff, your material was new. So they still laughed and it was funny. And so you're still gonna, you're gonna carry on. You're gonna carry on and keep going. Tell me about Rice Krispies and Ketchup.
So my son is like severely disabled, right? So we had interacted with Milan when she was little. She's such a sweet little girl.
Milan is my daughter.
Sorry. Yeah. Who had autism or has. And then and my wife had helped out with some of the ABA, I think.
Yes, she did.
But my son's level of disability is so pronounced that it's different. And so, I don't know. I have a really hard time with it, with disability. I don't feel like I'm geared towards it. I feel like some people are very nurturing and I'm not.
Mm-hmm. It's okay.
I feel like, especially some moms are very like patient. I'm not patient at all. Mm. Like that all is like a struggle for me. So like with that lady, like, you know me, so you know my set, so you could see I was frustrated.
Yes.
Like the people that don't are like, oh, you're okay. Yeah. I'm like, I was frustrated with that lady because there was anyway, let's not talk about that anymore. But, and so I remember, I remember looking for something, not that there's nothing encouraging, but there's a lot more written from a woman's point of view. Mm-hmm. And it's harder for me to connect to it where it's like, because I feel like women are naturally more nurturing. So like you guys kind of say like, tap into this. I'm like, I don't have that. I don't have like that little like just tap into the love you've naturally.
I feel falsely
Speak
accused,
English,
but okay. Okay.
Well, maybe you don't speak that language either. But I think sometimes you do this weird Christian talk thing where there's assumptions are made about things that we hold deep inside that I don't have. So I wrote it from more of a standpoint about more practical and hopefully funny, where it's like, one of the chapters is choosing happiness. Your dreams have changed. Your dreams are not his dreams. Like I had dreams for him to make the league.
Absolutely.
So I'm pretty good. I could teach him a few tricks. He's bigger. He could, and then never even catch a basketball. So all these dreams you have for him slowly die. And that doesn't die when he's 2. That dies when he's like 10 or 11, and he's like, oh, he's my size. He should be able to at least grab a basketball. And then like I wrote a chapter about remembering that's not his dream. He doesn't care. He's not mourning the loss of this dream that you had for him that wasn't his, didn't initiate in. So there's a chapter about that. There's a chapter about just different things about.
I think it's very funny. I think it's very well written. I do appreciate it from the perspective of a dad, because that voice is few in the sphere of parents with kids with with kids with differences, and every parent goes through having to grieve or mourn the death of the dream that they have for their kids, whether they're normal and choose not to.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I mean, it's just amplified and magnified with parents of kids with special needs.
Well, because the dreams can be so much simpler, like dreams for my son to live alone,
right,
or for him to have a job, to be the guy who mops the floor at Walmart or makes fries or Walmart at McDonald's or anything.
Right.
So the other weird thing is you go through this like weird cascade, like, okay, NBA is not possible. How about Division I? Okay, NAIA. Okay, how about he can sell basketballs at Walmart? Okay, that's gonna work. How about, so like, it just like not that it never ends, but it is a weird thing where it's like, he's now 22, is that right? And so like, you still have things where you're like, oh, it'd be cool if he could have a girlfriend or whatever. Somebody like, I should die eventually. He should outlive me. So it'd be cool for him to have somebody, I don't know, sex is great, but just to like have a companion to be with, someone to hang out with. Like, so.
I didn't realize that. It's interesting because usually when I'm in different groups, and I'll be in support groups, I always find that help is always in community for whatever I need. Whether I'm trying to, launch a business, I want to be in part of a group to get some mastermind ideas. But when I have gone to parent groups for support for kids with special needs, far and few between, have heard the voice of the father talk about their disappointment or their inner struggle with having a kid with a difference. So it's new for me, and to hear it, especially from you. So, but have you been in support groups? That's what I would ask, because you were assuming that women do this naturally, and I got a whole lot of pushback, but I'll save that for later. But might be for another show.
Well, maybe women don't do it naturally. That's another thing, that your experience is clouded by your own experiences. Like my parents, none of my siblings married white people, so like even when I was younger, like people would vocalize issues of race, I'd be like, people aren't racist, because my experience, people were racist. Like, no, my family thinks like that. I've never heard that.
Right.
Oh, white people say the N-word a lot when black people are around. Not my family. Nobody's ever said that.
Right.
So I think like we're clouded by our own, we just make assumptions about, oh, everybody acts like this. So not everybody, but Lorena was much better, to get back to the point, at being patient with him, at accepting him where he was, that almost cartoonishly, the contrast between us was so stark. Now, the flip side is that she internalized a lot of that, and then, which isn't great either, because then it takes her kind of a dark place if she's already in a dark place. Right.
The balance or lack thereof. So you didn't find, because you traveled a lot, but I'm wondering, support groups, did you reach out to any? Your question.
No. So I did a couple.
It's okay.
How do I say this?
Yeah.
It's a lot of
Take the filter off. Take the filter off.
Well, it's kind of a lot of initiative whining where you're like, I'm like, poor me. It's like, okay, we've all gone through that. Now what? Like, what do you, I don't know. I think sometimes there's like a lot of people that want to be heard, and maybe it's because I feel like I'm heard a lot anyway. I don't have that, but I agree.
And to the point of community, I'm gonna go to a dark place. It's gonna be dark, but it's gonna be funny. So I've been telling you about, so the listeners don't know, but I've lost both of my brothers, which were both of your teammates. So when we did connect, it was so healing for me to be able to talk about use their names in conversation with you, right? And then I told you that I am in a grief share group, which is also healing. However, I've experienced other community groups with being in special needs atmospheres, and people hang their identity on, I'm the parent of an autistic, and that's never been never been what I've wanted to do. But I see it, the same things happening in this group. Their label is
right.
I lost my.
But that doesn't define you completely, does it?
Right. No, and it shouldn't. Right. And that's not my expectation. But I'm the newest. Let me say, I'm the one in the group that has the freshest loss. So my brother just transitioned the end of 2020. So other people have been in there, and this is like their 8th cycle, 8th 13-week cycle of going through this grief share group. And I'm like, okay, so when are you going to graduate out of this? And I want to be empathetic. People grieve at different rates and processes and speeds. But one element that I thought that was missing, that I was telling you, is that you should do a comedy grief share group. You need to somehow turn that into, because there's no laughter in there. It doesn't look like there's any hope. There doesn't look like where's the finish line to this? I
do want to touch on something you said earlier. And I'm like, I have this weird, so I guess we haven't really touched on this yet, but my wife died. Mm-hmm. So there's a weird thing where you talking about somebody who's deceased. We have this weird thing where we decide to canonize them and decide that they're a saint now, which is rarely the case. But at the same time, you were trying to be respectful to someone's memory.
And that's what was so freeing about our conversation at dinner.
And I know your brothers, and they're sweethearts. I love both of them, but they're both complicated men. Yes. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I would say to our listeners, if there are that have special needs kids, is you have to be really careful about holding on to that label too strongly. Like, I'm the father or the daughter of a special needs kid, because when JJ transitioned to a house to live as an adult, Lorraine had like a really hard time with that.
Because our identity was I'm the mother.
Nobody can care for him like I can. Nobody can, which is not healthy, because it's really codependent, where it's getting this weird thing where it's like your whole identity is wrapped up in this. And then when it's taken away, that piles onto the depression thing. So that was like the timing of that, I don't think was a coincidence. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I know it's a heavy subject, but it's the truth.
I wanted to go there. So, and you think that coincides with the depth of her depression. So you're saying I wasn't seeing.
Yeah, I mean, she feels like she has her whole identity ripped away. Mm-hmm. Because like, if her number one thing is, I've been the mother of a disabled child for 20 years, and I'm his strongest advocate, and he leans on me the most when he's sad, and I'm the only one that really understands him. Which there's some truth to all that, but at the same time, it's like, that's not all you are. You're also a wife and a mother to another child, and you're also a daughter and a sister. And
right. And I think that when I read your book, the first book, that you have a way of self-deprecating sense of humor.
Well, and you're built like me.
And I remember also that you would poke fun at Lorena also in your act. Yeah. But I think that it was so healthy, and I think that that's the thing that's missing. And I enjoyed being able to have that conversation with you over dinner a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about our loved ones being gone, and also that self-deprecating, like we can talk about who they really are and make room for laughter while we were talking about something that was so sorrowful.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a disservice to people if you canonize them, because then it's not a nuanced person. It's some saint that you can't connect with. Like, think about it. When you describe somebody as too perfect, then you're like, it's hard, at least for me, it's hard to connect with them on any level, because I'm like, I know me and I am not that.
Right. Exactly.
That guy's perfect. Well, it's not like me then, because have you been around me?
Right. Yeah. Right. No, so that was refreshing. Tell me about your new book.
So this summer, comedy clubs have gotten complicated. So I took a job as a movie company in New York City that's mostly artists. It's like sculptors and painters and comics. There's a few literary guys, but they're so weak. They don't carry much, so they get weeded out. But so I took this job, and then I wrote a book about it. It's a metaphor. Moving is for metaphor for moving on in life. The working title is Unpacking and Moving On, and it's same genre, 16 short stories. It's an anthology, but it's really about people, similar to maybe James Harriet's All Creatures Great and Small, where he's a vet, but it's not really about being a vet. It's about how people interact and trying to navigate people. I mean, people's kind of the last frontier, even though we all have these phones and all these, like, it still comes down to you have to interact with people, and people are complicated. It's
They are.
like your brother, like, I remember, I don't know if you want to talk about exactly this experience, but towards the end of his life, you're trying to help him and he's not making himself available. And you're like, I'm only trying to help you.
Exactly.
I mean, this is a conversation I have with my daughter who's neurotypical. It's like, I'm only trying to help you. I'm not trying to move into your house. I'm not trying, I want your money.
Right.
I mean, I'm trying to help you. Like,
absolutely.
and it's hard. I always say that the people that need the most help are the hardest to help. Like if someone's actually homeless and not in their right mind, you can't even give them money because they can't piece it together and like figure out their own housing. Like even if you rented them an apartment, they don't, they can't piece it together to get up. So the people that need the most help are the hardest to help sometimes.
They really are. They really are. And so having to just reconcile those feelings and emotions of if the person is in self-destruct mode unto death.
Yeah.
That's why I'm in Grief Share, trying to unpack that, because you're trying to, and it's happened several times. So either my label is not as their savior, for anyone. There's only one, and it ain't me.
Well, yeah. And so Lorna committed, took her own life. And so there was I read I can't remember who wrote this, but it was like basically the idea being everybody writes their own, writes their own book, or everybody writes their own canoe. I can't remember what it is, but everybody has some control of their own life. Like you don't get to decide if somebody passes away. That's not within you. You can encourage, you can do these things. And then at some point you need to be like, well, if you're a Christian, you hand it off to God or whatever you believe, but you can't just, you're not God.
No.
If you're not sure, talk to me. I'll remind you. I'll look at you and I'll size you up and I'll make fun of you and make sure you're aware. I do that in my act sometimes. A lot of teasing. Yeah.
Yep. So it's been a lot of teasing. It's been a lot of comedy. It's been a lot of truth telling. Talked about some hard and challenging things, and excited about your projects. How can people find you?
Yeah, check me out online. All my social media is Kirk Smith Comedy. If you're not into social media, I have a website. I'm hoping that this book comes out in 2 months. We're talking right now, but it could be 3 because everything's complicated right now with COVID and everything else. But yeah, and I'm doing shows. Even we're doing
Kirk Smith Comedy. That's the website.
Shows, yes.
Okay.
Comedian. Yeah. We're doing socially distant shows. Not sure when this comes out. I'm in Minneapolis next week, and then I think I'm in OKC, Oklahoma City at the Looney Bin. But yeah, check me out. Come see a show, buy a book. Oh, I have a podcast. I have the #1 autism podcast called Autastic, Comedian's Guide to Autism. It's me and another comic. He has an autistic brother. We just do the news. We do interview Temple Grandin, interview a lot of autism scientists, and it's just funny, encouraging. That's it.
It is. It's really good. It's so good to see you in the place I said I would never come to. I'm in Neverland. I'm in Dallas, and I'm loving it. Thanks for coming to check on me. That's it for today's guest with Kirk Smith at Just Keep Living with Marva Hanks. Everyone at some point in their lives will have to settle the matter of disappointment, whether in people or circumstances. Choose to receive His grace to influence your next step. Just keep living with Marva Hanks.
Sign up and be a part of the team. Be a Podtrotter at Podotron.com. Thank you for listening to Podotron.